Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a truly wild story. A story of total transformation, heartbreak, and eventually, a whole lot of hope. We're tracking the fascinating journey of the Damodar River. This is a river that started out as an absolute pristine paradise, morphed into a massive, heavily polluted industrial powerhouse, and is now the focus of a really cutting-edge scientific rescue mission. It's a complex, deeply important journey, so let's get right into it. Okay, let's dive into this. To really grasp what's at stake here, we have to travel up to the river's source in the Indian state of Jharkhand. If you read the local texts, they poetically describe this region as a hidden jewel of nature, literally wrapped in a blanket of greenery and steeped in all this rich cultural heritage. And that's our baseline. We're not just talking about water flowing over rocks here, we're talking about a landscape that has inspired deep reverence for centuries. You can actually see that reverence woven right into the landscape. Beautiful sacred temples rest peacefully right along the Damodar's banks. The river actually starts way up in the Kamarpad Hills on the Chota Nagpur Plateau. Up in these higher reaches, where locals sometimes call it the Damodar, it flows through these stunning, vibrant terrestrial ecosystems. It's a rain-fed river, and, it's been nourishing life, spirituality, and culture in this exact spot for generations. Even the river's name gives away how culturally deep its roots go. Damodar actually comes from two Sanskrit words, Dama, which means rope, and Udra, meaning belly. Now, if you know your Hindu mythology, that's another name for the god Krishna. It comes from this famous story where his foster mother, Yashoda, tied him to a large urn with a rope around his belly. So right off the bat, the etymology tells us this isn't just a river, it's practically sacred. Section 2. The River of Sorrows, a turbulent history. Because, well, a river's personality isn't always so peaceful. Let's look at how wild things got before human intervention. Before we tried to tame it, the Damodar was incredibly wild and, frankly, destructive. See, the Chota Nagpur Plateau gets hammered by monsoon rains. We're talking almost all of its 1,400 millimeters of annual rain dumping down in just 3 months, between June and August. When all that water surged downstream, it was terrifying. Massive, town-drowning floods hit in 1770, 1855, and 1943. In 1913, the water was raging so hard, it actually ripped down a massive stone bridge. This annual fury is exactly why it historically earned the very dark nickname, the Sorrow of Bengal. That sheer terror literally flowed into the local culture. There's this traditional Badu song that features a really haunting plea. It goes, "O Damodar, we fall at your feet, reduce the floods a little." Think about that for a second. The locals were at the total mercy of this river, literally begging the waters to recede just so they could survive the season. Section 3. The Roar of India. Industrial Transformation. By the 20th century, the mandate entirely changed, kicking off a massive industrial shift. So, to finally tame this river of sorrows, the newly independent Indian government looked all the way to the U.S., specifically the Tennessee Valley Authority, for inspiration. In 1948, they created the Damodar Valley Corporation. The original idea? Stop the floods with a huge network of dams. But it unleashed something way bigger. Get this staggering statistic: 60%. That is the amount of India's entire industrial coal needs met by the Chota Nagpur belt right in the Damodar Basin. The area is just sitting on massive deposits of coking coal. Once the floods were controlled and the hydropower kicked in, the basin exploded into the absolute engine of Indian industry. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer, overwhelming density of what got built here. It is mind-blowing. We aren't talking about a couple of factories. We are talking about 5 massive integrated steel plants, 11 thermal power stations churning out over 10,000 megawatts, 24 coal washeries, and these sprawling giant coal fields like Jiria and Raniganj. The river wasn't just tamed, it was put to work on an absolutely monumental scale to fuel a growing nation's ambitions. Section 4. A basin in crisis. Because, as you might guess, forcing a river to work that hard comes with a staggering ecological cost. You just can't put a 23,000 square kilometer natural drainage area under that much industrial pressure without some profound consequences. Today, the riverbanks are highly degraded. They suffer from massive siltation and these huge exposed sand beds. Between all the land use changes, severe erosion, and the constant siphoning off of water for power plants and irrigation, the river's natural environmental flow, its E-flow, has just plummeted. Throw in the thick, toxic industrial effluents discharged from coke oven plants and coal washeries, and you've got a river that's literally choking to death. And it's not just the water quality at stake here. The upper basin is packed with incredible biodiversity. We're talking 24 species of mammals, 300 species of birds, and absolutely crucially, this area contains vital migration corridors for elephants and tigers, linking up to major reserves like Palamo and Dalma. But the increased mining and heavy industry are fragmenting this habitat, threatening to push these amazing animals right toward local extinction. The clock is ticking. Immediate intervention is absolutely critical. Section 5. The Rejuvenation Blueprint. So how on earth do we fix this? Enter a massive, science-backed rescue mission. How do you save a river that essentially acts as the lifeblood of an entire nation's industry? Well, the Institute of Forest Productivity, based down in Ranchi under the Ministry of Environment, is spearheading the effort. They've put together a detailed project report, or DPR. And here's the clever part. Their approach isn't about blindly shutting down all the industry. Instead, they want to use highly targeted, forestry-based interventions to restore the river's natural flow, halt that awful soil erosion, and build back a sustainable habitat for the wildlife. And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer geographic scope of their challenge. It's immense. The main river alone is 545 kilometers long, cutting right across Jharkhand and West Bengal, and it gets joined by major tributaries like the Barakar and the Konar. To actually save it, scientists have to look at this entire massive riverscape as one giant interconnected living organism. To tackle a puzzle this big, they're relying on hard data. It basically breaks down into 3 steps. Step 1, they use modern GIS tools and Landsat satellite imaging to perfectly map out how the land is currently being used. Step 2, they run a multi-criteria analysis, layering in data on soil types, slopes, and rainfall to pinpoint the exact areas at highest risk of erosion. This is super smart because it ensures resources go exactly where they'll have the biggest impact. Finally, step 3, depending on the land, whether it's natural forest, farmland, or an urban area, they roll out custom plantation models and biofiltration systems. It's literal precision environmental engineering. And the physical scale of this plan? Huge. They're targeting a buffer zone stretching 5 kilometers on both sides of the main river and 2 kilometers along all the tributaries. But treating a zone that massive isn't just a science problem, right? It's a people problem. It's going to require massive cooperation from everyone. We're talking government agriculture departments, private landowners, civil society. Everyone has to get on board and really take ownership of this rejuvenation effort. Which brings us to the ultimate question this explainer leaves us with. Can modern, data-driven forestry interventions actually balance the intense demands of a growing industrial nation with the survival of its sacred natural ecosystems? The blueprint is there, the science is completely sound, but how this monumental task is executed is what's going to define the future of the Damodar River. Thank you so much for joining me to unpack this incredible subject. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.